Hey everyone, Dane here from Moving to Canada. I am here today to bring you the latest news and updates on coronavirus, COVID-19, and how that is impacting Canadian immigration. Just a quick note here at the top. It is currently 4:11 p.m. Eastern Standard Time, Montreal time, on Wednesday, March 18th. If you are listening to this at a later date and time, please be aware the story is evolving and changing rapidly, so the information that you hear in this video may have changed by the time you are hearing it. For all of the latest up-to-date information on coronavirus and how it's impacting Canadian immigration, check out Moving to Canada's coronavirus news feed. You can find a link to that in the description of this video. So, today I'm going to be discussing the information that we are getting and what kind of information we are bringing to you, to our community members, to our audience. As well, we're going to be discussing express entry. Usually every second Wednesday there's an express entry draw. There was not one today, so we will be discussing why that may have been. Then we're going to be covering the major breaking news for today, the closure of the Canada-U.S. border, which was announced earlier today. And finally, I will be going over a few of the common questions we've been getting from our audience members, questions about COPRs, flag polling, questions about status for students, temporary workers in Canada and in the United States, as well as some general questions about processing and issuing of invitations. So let's jump right into it. So our goal here at Moving to Canada, and we want to make this clear to you, our audience, is to bring you factual, objective information related to coronavirus and the changes in immigration policy. There is a lot of misinformation floating out there. There's a lot of speculation and opinions floating around. We want to ensure that the information we are bringing you is backed up by sources that we can trust. So we are not engaging in speculation right now. If we don't know the answer to a question, we're going to tell you that we don't know the answer. We're not going to try to guess what that answer might be. We want to be a source that you can rely on throughout this crisis, so we're going to try to maintain source fact-based material. So a lot of changes have been happening in the past couple of days. A lot of big changes to policies relating to the global health crisis and related to Canada's public health policies. These have been high-level changes. They've been sweeping and broad: closures of borders, denials of flights, that sort of thing. And what we've been seeing is that the immigration policies and the fine details of who is affected and how they are affected are taking time to catch up to the big, broad policy announcements. That means sometimes we don't have the details and the answers to your questions as soon as these things are announced. We have to wait a couple of hours, a day, 2 days, until we can gather the information we need to give you a solid answer. One note here: Canada's immigration agency, Immigration, Refugees and Citizenship Canada, IRCC, they have not published any new news releases, any updates to operational bulletins or manuals since before they announced the border closures on Monday. Not today's border closure, the one that happened on Monday. This means that right now, as far as immigration is concerned, we're working off of limited information because IRCC has not had the chance to publish updated information for us. Okay, once they do, we're monitoring that closely. We'll be sure to bring it to you as quickly as possible. So, express entry. Why was there no draw today? A lot of people have been asking us this. Usually there's an express entry draw every 2 weeks. Today was 2 weeks since the last one, so we were expecting one might have happened. There hasn't been one so far. People have been speculating that it might have been due to coronavirus, that they're pausing the issuance of invitations. Honestly, we cannot say that for sure. It may be due to coronavirus and some delays that IRCC is facing. However, IRCC often breaks their regular 2-week schedule and just takes an extra week off, takes an extra 2 weeks off. So this could have just been a regularly planned break between express entry draws. We don't know the answer to that question. We'll be monitoring it. We'll bring you updates if and when they become available. So, on to the breaking news for today, the closure of the U.S.-Canada border. This news broke earlier this morning. Prime Minister Justin Trudeau announced it in a press conference. And it was corroborated by U.S. President Donald Trump, who also tweeted about this. The details are that Canada and the United States are closing their land border to all non-essential travel. Now, we don't know the exact definition of what non-essential and essential travel is. We have had some descriptions, though they are lacking details, but Trudeau did state that non-essential travel includes all forms of recreation, tourism, shopping trips, any of that sort of stuff between both countries. But he iterated that supply chains will not be affected by this closure. So people in the trucking industry who are moving food and fuel as well as other vital supplies across the border, they won't be impacted by this change. Now, we have been getting questions from our community as to who will still be able to cross the border. If you're a Canadian living in the United States right now, or you're on a trip in the United States, will you be able to come back? So Canadian citizens and Canadian permanent residents who are currently residing in the United States are still able to cross the border to return to Canada. However, in his press conference this morning, Trudeau urged Canadians who are in the United States and Americans who are in Canada not to travel in either direction unless you absolutely have to. This is one of the things that we're seeing emerge here. A lot of our community members are asking, legally, can I do this? Legally, in this situation, can I still cross into Canada? Can I still get to Canada? Sometimes the answer to that question is yes, but there's another element to consider, and that's the public health element here. If you do not have to travel to Canada at this moment, if it's not vital, if you can make other plans, it's better to remain where you are. This is a large global effort to contain the spread of a virulent coronavirus. So the better we can all do to keep that mitigated, the better for the world. Canada. So we've also been getting questions from international students and temporary workers, so people with Canadian study permits and Canadian work permits who are currently in the United States, who are wondering if they can get back into Canada because they're not citizens, they're not permanent residents, they are students and workers who, let's say, might have left Canada for a couple of days for a spring break trip or something like that. We have had confirmation from Public Safety Minister Bill Blair that temporary residents of Canada who are currently residing in the United States will still be able to return to Canada provided that they've been in the United States for 14 days. So if you were in another country and then you traveled to the United States and it's been less than 14 days, you will not be able to cross the border back into Canada at this time. Otherwise, it based on Bill Blair's comments, should not be a problem. Great. So I'm going to skip ahead and recap a bit of the other news we've had come out this week. Earlier this week on Monday, March 16th, we had Canada close its borders to other countries that are not the United States. So earlier this week, Canada closed its international borders to anyone who's not a Canadian citizen or permanent resident. There are a few important exceptions to that, which I will get to in a moment, but that border closure came into effect earlier on March 18th. So as of that coming into effect, airlines in Canada and airlines that are bound for Canada will no longer allow foreign nationals on planes. Okay? There are a few exceptions to this. Air crews, diplomats, citizens of the United States, though, take note, with the new restrictions on the U.S.-Canada border, that will also be changing, and immediate family members of Canadian citizens. On that note of family members who are exempt from this restriction, we've had people asking, are immediate family members of permanent residents also exempt? There was a statement from a minister in the initial press conference where they did state that immediate family members of permanent residents would also be exempt. However, on the official published guidelines on the Canadian government website, it only says Canadian citizens, so that is the only group that of immediate family members that we can say with confidence will still be able to cross into Canada or fly to Canada. So I'm going to go over a few of the common questions we've been getting. Again, a lot of these answers, a lot of these questions, a lot of this information is constantly developing. So if you want the most up-to-date information, be sure to check out that newsfeed that's linked in the description. But we have a very common question we've been getting is about people who have their confirmation of permanent resident status, your COPR. So if you have your COPR, can you still enter Canada despite the travel ban? We do not know the answer to this question at this time. Technically, COPR holders are not yet confirmed permanent residents, but once you land at the border, you can activate your PR status, so it's a bit of a gray area. Anecdotally, we've heard from our community members today. We have heard from some community members who say they were able to activate their permanent resident status with their COPR today. We've heard from other community members who have said they were denied boarding on a plane bound for Canada, even though they had their COPR. So it seems vague. It seems like officials are not entirely sure about this. And from a public health perspective, it makes the most sense to remain where you are. If your COPR is going to expire, you have options. Go to the IRCC online web form, fill that out with details about your application, details about the situation, and request an extension on the validity of your COPR and your travel visa if you've received one. It's not guaranteed that IRCC will issue an extension, but they have been encouraging people to request extensions. So we're guessing with the public health situation that extensions might be on the table. Okay. If you're inside Canada, can you still travel to the U.S.-Canada border and flagpole to activate your status? Flagpoling, for people who aren't aware, is when you travel to a Canadian port of entry on the U.S. border. You technically leave Canada and re-enter Canada in order to activate a new type of status. We don't know if you can still do this. The U.S.-Canada border closure was only announced a few hours ago, so we don't have this detail. We advise against flagpoling at this time. Both from a public health perspective, it's better to remain home if possible. As well, since we can't confirm that you'll be able to do it, it might be a waste of time. You might be denied the ability to exit Canada. You might be denied the ability to re-enter Canada. So it just doesn't seem like the time to flagpole. People have been asking us, if you travel to Canada right now, what will happen to you? If you're eligible to travel to Canada, you're a Canadian citizen, you're a permanent resident, and you travel here, you are going to go through heightened screening at the airport, and you are going to be asked to self-isolate for 14 days. So just be aware of that. A lot of Canada is self-isolating right now, myself included, here in my apartment. It's a good time. It's a great time to try out a new streaming service. Get your Netflix subscription going. People have been asking us about travel documents. If your letter of introduction is going to expire, you're coming through IEC, maybe through the working holiday program, you have an LOI, it's going to expire in the next couple of weeks. What do? IRCC recommends filling out their online web form, providing the details about the situation and requesting an extension. Again, there's no guarantee that IRCC is going to issue an extension, but considering the circumstances, it seems like it's on the table. Another question, I'm inside Canada as a student, a worker, or a visitor, and I'm unable to leave. What do I do? Can I extend my status? Your status is not automatically extended if you are stuck inside of Canada. However, IRCC has issued special measures to help those who are affected by the coronavirus. So check out their special measures and their recommendations for temporary residents who are inside Canada and are unable to leave. You do have options for extending your status, but you have to proactively take those options. If your status is going to expire, make sure you take the steps to extend, to apply for a new type of status. Make sure that you are always in status. If you fall out of status while you're in Canada, it can have some really bad implications for you in the future. Okay? Take that time while you're isolated at home to check out those instructions. If your application deadline is approaching and you can't gather all the required documents, what do? IRCC has stated that they're not going to be refusing applications if the application is incomplete due to COVID-19. So you can still submit your application even if it is incomplete, but ensure if you submit it that you include a letter of explanation explaining any missing documents and the reasoning behind this. IRCC has stated that they will give you an additional 90 days to provide any of the additional documents required and to complete the missing steps in your application, as long as you're able to justify that this was caused by COVID-19. Finally, we've had some people asking if Canada's still processing immigration applications and if Canada's still issuing invitations for things like express entry and IEC. At this time, IRCC has not issued any statements suggesting that there are delays or backlogs in processing caused by coronavirus, nor have they issued any statements that they're pausing the issuance of invitations for express entry or for IEC. This may change. They might issue such a statement in the future, but at this time we're not going to speculate. That's the information that we have. If there is new information that comes to light, we will update you guys as soon as we have it. Great. So those are all of the updates that I wanted to go over for you today. If you do have questions that have not been answered in this video, please feel free to drop them into the comments. We are doing our best to consolidate the questions of our community members and answer them in the coronavirus newsfeed, the link to which is in the description of this video. So you can also check that and see if your question might have been answered in the past hours or days. Otherwise, thank you guys for tuning in. We'll be sure to come back to you once we have further information. I know it's a bit of a challenging time out there. I think we're feeling it all over the world. It's a time for global solidarity. It's a time to take care of yourself, take care of your family. I wish you all the best. Hopefully this will all be over not too far from now and we can all get back to normal. Thanks so much.